Hi everyone, Chicken here. In the last class, we learned about light and shadows, and we even applied what we learned to a simple character portrait. This lesson will just be an overview of color theory. We will just be learning how different colors work together and how our mind interprets them. There's a whole chapter dedicated to colors later on where we will be going much more in depth into the topic. So this lesson will focus on the basics to allow you to understand why we might choose certain colors over others. So there are 3 parts to a single color, and it's represented on Procreate's color picker here with these 3 bars. The first one is hue. So if we click here, this is hue. Basically, it's what the base color is. If this was traditional painting, it would refer to the color of the pigment itself. And the second, S, which stands for saturation, it's just how much of the color is present or how concentrated the pigment is. And the third one, tone, or B for brightness, is how dark or light the color or how much black or white is in the paint. So out of the 3, I believe that tone is the most important because at the end of the day, what makes a painting readable is the tone, and it's what gives the painting volume. Next, let's talk about color theory and how to match colors according to color harmony. Color harmony refers to colors that naturally look good together, and Procreate actually has a built-in function to help you with that. Here. Personally, I only utilize 2 of them, which are complementary and analogous. So complementary colors are colors that are opposite the color wheel. This was the first thing my art teacher taught me back in school. And analogous are colors that are close together on the color wheel. You can play around with the rest too. There's triadic, tetradic, and split complementary, which is quite similar to complementary. I just find that complementary and analogous are the easiest to work with. But let's take these 2 complementary colors and make a color palette. So yes, while the colors do go well together, if we apply this color palette to a whole painting, it can be a bit much, and that's because they are both saturated to the same degree and they will be competing for our eyes' attention. How we may fix this is by turning down the saturation of one color, maybe to about halfway, and this will work a lot better in a painting. Let's try and apply this to a character art. I have the girl from the previous lesson here. Let's say she has this bright red hair and the previous color is hiding under here. So yes, the colors look nice together, but this is a bit bright. What we want to do is have one more saturated color and one less saturated color, which is this new palette that we created. And it looks a lot nicer. The hair becomes our focal point, and we actually have a place to rest our eyes from the bright bold colors in her less saturated skin. And same goes for the inverse. If we want to make her skin the focal point, let's just create a new color palette. And we'll turn down the saturation. Like this, her skin becomes the focal point, but we have a place to rest our eyes in the duller green of her hair. But if we want to create a color palette for a whole painting, 2 colors is not quite enough. We need a few more colors. So how will we go about choosing those colors? We can use both analogous and complementary to create a new color palette. Let's say we want to work with this orange and this blue. And we decide that the orange is going to be our focal point. So let's expand on this blue. Using analogous colors, we can come up with a few more colors to add to our color palette. And they can be of varying saturations and brightness. Just make sure that it isn't more saturated than the orange so that the orange will remain as the focal point. And we have a pretty nice and simple color palette here. And to expand on this topic, in design, there's a 80-20 rule, which suggests that in a design, colors should be split in a 8:2 ratio, in which the main color that makes up 80% of the design is less saturated so that the 20% accent color can stand out. This is a character design that I did using complementary colors. I used purple and yellow, and as you can see, the majority of her design, or the main color, is purple. It's about 80% of her, and her accent color is yellow. And if we just get the color wheel here, we can see that the yellow is actually a lot more saturated than purple, which really allows the yellow parts to pop. So this 80-20 design rule can be very useful when you're wanting to design a character, but it can also be applied to when you're doing a full illustration. For the mission, create 5 different color palettes using the knowledge from today's lesson. And that concludes our first chapter, Art Basics and Fundamentals. I hope you learned something new about art and found the exercises useful. As always, if you have any questions or you want me to clarify anything, just leave it in the comments. In the next chapter, we'll be looking at anatomy and proportions, starting with breaking down the human body into shapes.